Hey everyone, it's Book of Katherine. I hope you are doing really well, and I'm so glad to have you on my channel. So I have about one video left in me tonight, and I was like, okay, if I have anything to say, like there's so much in me, and I'm like, what is it that I want to say? Like, what is it, if I had to say one thing, what is it that I would say? And it just screamed out in my head, the vote. The vote, the vote, the vote. Voters will switch on a dime. On a dime when they know that the DNC is the 1%. The majority of people who vote for the DNC are voting for the DNC because they want to vote against the 1% oppression. That's why the DNC has voters. They run on beating the 1%. And they're right, there is a problem with the 1%. The 1% does run things. They run the media, they run all the news stories. And since 1992, as I've shown you in the graphs, you know, their wealth has grown and our wealth has plummeted. But what happened in 1992? Well, that's when the liberal media took over, and that's when DNC policies were put into place. But we're not told that. That's when big companies, in fact, the top 10 billionaires, did you notice the top 10 billionaires of the United States? 8 out of the 10 are liberal donors. Did you notice that they are not 100-year-old companies? They're all companies created after 1992, with the exception of Microsoft. They're companies like Facebook and Google that were created right during the Clinton era, when our wealth plummeted. You know, Facebook was created in 2004. If you look back at the universities, it was 2005 when all of the screams for you don't have diverse enough faculty happened, and they switched out all the faculty members. Do you know why that happened? Because Facebook existed. And they could go on Facebook and create all the hate and say, look at all the rage that's happening, because now we know about the crash networks. They could actually create all the hate, and the universities were like, oh, people are really upset. And Facebook has been rewarded plentifully, even though they broke law after law after law and invaded our privacy. Now, if Facebook had originated before the liberal media was going on, what kind of news stories do you think would be happening? There would be questions about privacy concerns, breaches into our security, but none of that happened. Immediately, Facebook was like the herald of the future. When a DNC president is in office, that top 10%, those top 10 billionaires, their wealth grows exponentially. The people who aren't liberal, their wealth doesn't grow so much. Out of the top 20 families, 75% are Democrat. So when they give us those big graphs that the DNC gives us, and it says, look at the wealth gap, what they don't say is this wealth is DNC. It's liberals. They don't tell us that. And people vote on that graph. They literally vote along that graph with that vote in mind. And when they learn that that graph is all 1% and liberal and donors, they vote for the same reasons. They just vote for the party that actually represents the opposite. Like they vote for what they want. They want to go against the 1%. That means voting for the other party. It's that simple. That's why it's completely wiped off the internet, as we saw with net neutrality. Net neutrality would lower prices for consumers. It would lower prices for consumers across the board. It would lower, consumers would pay so much less for internet. The internet is so expensive now. Bills are like $100 or more. And it would lower those rates. But what do? Because liberals control the media. Liberals control, I should say leftists, but I mean, it's hard. I mean, you guys know what I mean. The left. Watch my liberals thing here. Because, like I said, the liberals I know, even the donors, like I even get the feeling that the haute couture ladies, when they're raising all this money, I don't think they knew that they were funding like a Sharia takeover of London and the rape, like Sweden becoming the rape capital of the world. I don't think anyone told them that. I don't think anyone told them that it's actually, like, no one puts it together that Wall Street bankers are liberal. Wall Street is liberal. No one puts it together. Wall Street's liberal. Google and Silicon Valley are liberal. Hollywood is liberal. That's the 1%. The media is liberal. Every wealthy industry, the ones who are absolutely incredibly wealthy, they fund the DNC. Nancy Pelosi has historically been the most huge. They brag about it. Politico brags about how she earns way more than any other, politician on Capitol Hill. Do you think voters know that when they go into the voting booth? They're going in there thinking they're voting for the opposite. That's as simple as it gets, is sharing that information. Do you know how many voters just change on that simple information? Because that's what they want. They don't want them in control. They don't want the 1% in control. And the media tells them, if you vote for the DNC. Now notice that the media never says the RNC represents the rich and powerful. They just say the wealth gap is growing. They don't say it's the RNC doing it. Because they could get in trouble. The RNC could sue them. So they don't go that far. They just say, oh, look, the wealth gap is growing. They don't say, well, we're the ones doing it by telling everyone net neutrality is horrible for them, when actually it protects their own interests. It's that simple. And then number 2 on voting is, I remember the Hillary Clinton lesson. Like, please remember the Hillary Clinton lesson. Like, just because you think that your candidate's in office, what happens when a candidate's in office? Everyone thinks we've won and they don't go to the polls. They don't go to the polls and the other party gets into office. They all say, oh, we're winning. I have heard numerous conservatives go out there and say, the conservatives are winning. The red wave is coming. Do you know what that does to conservative voters? They stay at home. I haven't heard any conservatives, they're out there talking about conservative ideas, but I haven't heard any of them talking about go to the polls, when traditionally only 10% of those who go to the polls for the presidential race, like 90% of voters go out for a presidential race, only 10% of voters go out. Only 10% of voters go out for an in-between race, and yet it is as important as the presidential race, because this is the race that determines whether or not they're going to impeach him. They will impeach him. They don't have to have a reason to impeach. They don't. They just have to vote for impeachment. How many votes for impeachment have they already had? All this positive progress you see, it is one vote away. But I don't see anyone talking about voting. We need to be talking about, have you signed up to be a poll master yet? Have you seen all the voting fraud going on? All the polling people, just like Soros has funded all of the librarians, all of the schools. Have you noticed how many library books are up on Amazon? All the good books are up on Amazon being sold. And yet I'm watching libraries saying they're expanding. What books are they expanding with? How is a library in today's world expanding, and with what money? And why are libraries on his list of foundations to donate to? And why are all the good books being put up on? And why can't you get a guest pass? Have you gone to a library? What was your experience when you went there? When you talk to people now, the biggest debate of today, when we go out there and reach people, is not like free speech and stuff like that. I think the biggest issue of today is like getting to the polls and protecting the polling places. Because what they're doing is they're arming the polls. And if a ballot comes in, if you are sitting in an absentee ballot and you don't fill it out all the way, they're filling out the rest of the ballot. And I can hear people in their heads saying, oh, no. People aren't that bad. Watch it. And I said there are 19 other videos like that Google erased. When they said they were doing the conservative sweeps, they were sweeping the voting fraud videos. They don't want you arming the polls and knowing that the polling places are corrupted. Like, you need to go sign up at your polling place. And you need to be telling people, like, do you remember what happened with Hillary? Everyone said Hillary was going to win. So people didn't turn out. Do you think they're going to make that mistake this time? Like, the opposing party's in, so they are going to come in record droves. Like, the same number everyone who voted last time has got to show out this time, if not more. How many are actually signing up voters? Are you signing up voters? Like, there should be voting drives going on. Like, massive voting drives. Like, that's just where my head's at. All that's in my head day in, day out now is voting. Are we signing people up to vote? Are we signing up for the polling place? Are we ready? Do we know when the next vote is? Are we talking about the next vote? Are we talking about the next vote that's coming up? Because let me tell you, they're not even publishing the real results. Like, you can't even believe the results that they're publishing. You can't. You have got to go out there and like that, you've got to get the real results out there because they're not doing it. Like, remember what happened with Israel? When they moved Jerusalem to the other, when they moved the embassy, what did they say? Like, Hamas blew everyone up and they said it was the Israelis. They published Hamas's faces and labeled them as Israelis. What will they do with the vote? Please start arming the polls. Please start signing up voters, and please make the vote like the most important issue of our day, because we're not winning. Right now, they have a greater passion for voting than we do. And we are the only ones that feel like, we want freedom of speech. It literally is like the Constitution versus communism. That's the choice. Constitution versus communism. Constitution versus the 1%. Like Google, Facebook, Bloomberg, Oracle. They all of them are funding the DNC. The 1% is funding massive voter drives and massive voter fraud. And we're not doing, the rest of the American people, what are we doing for the vote? Like, to me, that's the biggest issue of our day. And like, so I was like, I have one chance to do a video, and that's my biggest thing is like, please, like, it should be a voter countdown. Like, Mueller shouldn't be on our list. Like, it is clear that the White House has Mueller handled. Like, they clearly, Watch what's going on with the lawyers. They've clearly got that handled. We should be watching the election as if it's the election, because it is. Impeachment is on the line. And we should be watching it. And it's so easy. It's so easy to get voters by just telling them the truth about the 1%. Like, it's so easy. Because that's why they're voting. Like, they think that the DNC represents the poor. And they couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. Like, let me put it to you this way. Like, let me just blow your mind for a sec. The DNC, all they want to do is shove higher taxes, right? So did the King of England. So did the King of England. King of England said England needed it for its people. Did it go to its people? Or did it just make the rich richer? And we actually fought a revolution and founded a country on the idea of heavy taxation. The DNC, funded by the 1%, is literally the party that runs on the most bougie platform in history. Tax the poor. They say tax the rich. But how is that possible if it's the rich that's funding them? Because here's something no one ever mentions. If it's only the Christians that have values, if that's why the left hates the Christians and the Jews so much because they have a value system, then we know that the Christians and the Jews with their value system, they're the ones who don't lie. Why wouldn't the left lie? They make fun of value systems. What's the left's value system? Money. That's what unites the left. Everyone wonders, why are all these things conflicting with the left? Because Sharia law doesn't really make sense with feminism. They clash. You know, female genital mutilation doesn't make sense with feminism. All these things don't make sense, and communism doesn't make sense. No. If you go up the chain, no. To the funding of it all, let's see. China funds Hollywood. We've proved that. You can watch that up here. China funds Hollywood today. And I have another video. I'll link it below. So many videos on how China funds Hollywood and changes our movies. All right. And Hollywood funds the DNC. Okay. And China is rich dictators. So Sharia funds advertising. Sharia funds Twitter, owns Twitter. That's why you can't say America on Twitter or you get shadow banned, as we know from the undercover tapes. They said it very clearly. All right. And then Soros, you know, he owns the EU and he funds everything, the entire education system in the U.S. All right. And Antifa, he funds. All right. So what are the three things that those three guys have in common? They're all left. Oh, right, and the Jewish media, the Jewish-controlled media, why would they protect Hamas that's trying to eradicate Israel off the face of the map? That doesn't make sense. But the Jewish-controlled media, which I proved here, you can watch the video here. That's not racism, it's just the truth. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. Like, Sharia wants to eradicate Jews. Like, they kill Jews. Just like they kill homosexuals and hang them in the street. Which I have pictures and posted. And stoning, video of stoning, as much as Google wipes it off because it's paid by advertisers like Soros and Sharia and Communist China. You know why Google's paid to do that? It's paid a lot of money. Because they're all rich. When you don't have a value system, then all that's left is you. You're free. It's funny because I saw Dennis Prager interviewing someone. He says the left believes that everyone's good. And I was like, the left doesn't believe everyone's good. Like, they don't think we're naturally inherently good. The left is just like, just don't tell me I'm bad. Like, the left just doesn't want, they don't think they're good. The left just believes, they just don't think they're inherently evil. They just don't want to be told they're evil. Because they want to be left alone to do whatever they want. They want to be left alone to pursue their own selfish goals. They just don't want to be told they're bad. They want to be left alone to pursue their own selfish pursuits. Because as we know, their charities don't even give to hospitals. That's conservatives. Conservatives give. Because when Hurricane Katrina hit, I remember in Hollywood, because I was around Hollywood at that time, and someone in Hollywood got upset because they were like, wow, it just makes us look really bad because the only people helping in Katrina are the churches. Not one liberal organization was helping in Katrina. Oh, but Warren Buffett and Microsoft do philanthropy. No. They fund the things that make them richer. Because when you don't have a value system, you value yourself. And when you value yourself, you put yourself before others. And that's greed. That's money. And that's what all four of those things have in common. Communist dictators, Middle East wealthy oil men, George Soros, and the Jewish media, they're all wealthy AF. And when I showed you that globe, and that research on the money of the centralized corporate money chart of our map, those are the four where all the money's gathered is underneath their umbrella. That's where all the money's gathered into those and those bankers. So when you wonder, like, why is Europe falling and why is America falling? Like, it's the bankers. They need those economies to fall so that they can have the one world bank. Like, the banks of Europe and the banks of America are in the way of a one world bank. Their currencies are in the way. They need the dollar to fall. It's just money. That's what the left is. It's just money. Like, you gotta pull out and see the whole thing. And I'll just end on that. I'll just end on one thing is just, if I was doing the Do What You Are video I said today, it wasn't, whatever. Oh, I was watching it today. And in it, I was noticing that I was talking about how he's intuitive. And I was like, that's because I'm always like, why isn't anybody putting this together? And I was like, I have strong intuition. And I was like, so a lot of people see the numbers and they see the numbers and they see the map and they see the numbers. But intuitives read the meaning between the numbers, right? They see the things in between. And that's like what my whole Twitter feed is I'm connecting the dots, right? Women are usually the intuitives. Like, women are very, very intuitive. And that's part of the reason they say women make the best mathematicians. They're great geniuses because they can take the numbers and then they read the meaning and put them together. And they said women make some of the best mathematicians. Like, my husband's always saying, he's like, you would just be the most amazing math genius. And I was like, I went to college and I said, give me all Give me all the majors that don't require math. Like, I literally said that. I was like, that is how I picked my major, was like, which one did not require math. So I think it's hysterical that he says that. But, like, we need more women. Like, when you speak, if you ever do a speaking engagement, like, if it's a man, you should have a woman present. Like, that's the way we used to do old school. Like, when you watch the old debates for presidential debates, notice they always used to have a woman present, because if there's going to be a male speaker, there should also be a female voice. Like, that's the way you used to old school. And part of that is because a woman's voice is so valuable. And so if you have women in your club and things like that, and they say things that sound crazy to you, it sounds crazy to you because they're reading, like, the meaning in between. Like, that's why they say behind every great man is a great woman, because the women are connecting the dots behind the scenes. And it's an equally valuable skill for the men to see all of the dots, and then a woman to connect the dots. Like, that's why it makes such a powerful team. And so it's just something to consider, like, to just go ahead and start, elevating the woman in ways that you can, and start, like, just consider that layer. And women, go ahead and start giving your thoughts more credibility. Just because it doesn't sound like the men in your world, that's a good thing. That means that you just think differently. Like, do what you are is just as much for you as it is for them. And it's just a different way of thinking. But, like, look at my feed, see how valuable it is. Like, intuitives are very, very valuable. And in this empirical society where we have all these men and pointing out in numbers and stuff, they'll tell you, like, oh, it doesn't prove that. But no, that's your intuition. And let me tell you, like, it's very, very rarely wrong. Like, if you just have a strong, like, you've seen my feed and stuff like that. And then you learn to start proving it. Like I don't post it unless I can prove it and put it up and everything like that. But, like, use it. Use your intuition, because it brings you to the same, like, you catch things that nobody else has catch. Like, you catch the facial expressions. And that is evidence just as strong as a man who catches numbers. All right? And it can be the same thing. Like, some men are intuitive and women are numbers. But think about it. Just think about, start giving the woman, like, that's why it's important to give them, seats and things like that in conservative groups as well. That's why their voices are so very, very powerful. They can change the course of history just as much as a man's voice can. And so you may not see them out in front, but I know enough people who have changed the course of history to know that they know who was behind. Like, the left won't show them anymore. Like Marilyn Monroe is a great one. She's a great example. Marilyn Monroe was the first female to open up her own production company. In fact, pretty sure she was the first one ever to open up her own production company. In, like, 1954, she broke out of the studio system and changed the game. Like, you would think if, like, the liberals were really for feminism, they would highlight her for that. Now, if you look it up, Google's completely changed that history. Like, they've completely changed it, and they don't raise her up as, like, this feminist hero, though she is, and she really, really set actors free. Like, they were really in a bad, like, studios owned them to the point where they would make them get divorces. And, like, we've kind of returned to that system now, quite frankly. And she broke them out of that. That was her. That's a massively powerful thing to do. And so there's a very important role that women can play. So, but it's a different way of thinking. And so that's why Do What You Are is really important. It helps you get to know people. And a lot of that information's hidden. Like, it was hard to find. Like, Google doesn't want you finding this stuff. It's interesting to find, like, I was listening to Jordan Peterson some more today, and he said something interesting. He's like, there's this amazing research, but he had to learn it from a guy who was older, like a really old guy who had read it when he was younger. And I was like, right, you have to learn stuff that way because it's not readily available today. Like, I was like, good luck finding that in the libraries today, right? So just something to think about, like, think about the vote. Let's push the vote out there. Like, all of us should know, like, when the next vote date is. Like, get the vote out there and start signing up to be at the polls and start knowing who you're going to vote for, and get as many flyers out as you can. get the news out, get as much, use my charts. You are free to use my charts all you want to. Like, that's why my information is there. Use my stuff, use my videos, go push it out there. That's what it's for. Go to it and tell people about, you know, how the DNC says there's a wealth gap because they created it. Like, they created it. They created it. Even welfare, the wealth gap was like this for blacks and whites. And then welfare kicked in and it went like boom. And every time they increase welfare spending, it goes up, like it goes yank. And I asked a question on my Twitter and I said to them, I said, how, well, to use their term, to use the DNC's term at the time, how mixed would Wall Street be if welfare hadn't happened? How mixed would Wall Street be today if welfare hadn't happened? Do you think it would still be a bunch of white liberals running around? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So there is just great research out there. There's great research, and let's it's an idea. It's an idea. I think it's the most important idea right now, because if the DNC gets control again, we're done. We are done. All the evidence is there. All the evidence is there. There is something strengthening, like if they're using the same flags as Lenin did back then, if they're using paid activists as Lenin did back then, we know now Germany, like I'll use the video right here, that Germany used paid actors, like Russia, the Russian Revolution was paid. The people who overthrew the government paid. Just like now. But do we name anyone? Like back then they were like Lenin, 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 but we don't say anyone's name now. We just say the left, the left, the left. Do we have any evil dictators we're willing to name now? And why is that? Like, if we have all the flags and all the signs, we have to start saying the names. Like, we have to start admitting that, you know, the left doesn't have any values, which means, and they're all interested in money. Like, we don't even say the name of the man who leads China, like China Uncensored does. It's time to start naming the evil dictators, because we can't, you know, his name will be in history books. I guarantee you. When the U.S. falls, it will be in history books. How Soros did it. He'll get the credit. He'll get the credit in history books. His name will be down there, for sure. There's power. You have to say it. You have to point out the King of England. We have to say the King of England's the problem, instead of just saying England's the problem. There's no power in that. You know, England's the problem. No, the King of England's the problem. The one doing it is the problem. The one writing the script. The one who's attacking us. There's power in that. So that's what I wanted to say. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, night, wherever that you are. And I'm so glad I was able to talk to you today. I love you so much. And I'm so glad that you are willing to do this with me. And it's fun doing this journey with you. I'm glad I learned this. Like, thank you, Prager University. Thank you for your videos and for the video that showed me the Forbes top 10. Like, I know it was just on a video with Tom Shilyu saying, like, don't compare yourself to others. But I saw that list and I was just like, what the heck? Like, I want to look that up. Oh, what I found when I did that. Like, thank you. Thank you. Like, if it weren't for Prager, like, because that history is not available anywhere else. Like, is it in the libraries? I can't imagine why he funded the libraries. So I'm so grateful. So thank you for that, because you have enabled us to go out, and he who owns history owns the world, and you have enabled us to have history again. And we just might be able to prevent an impeachment. Please, please, let's prevent an impeachment. Because I'm just terrified of what will happen if the 1% gets control again. Just look up Berkeley Antifa on Google, and you'll see what I mean. Peace out, guys.